Newsom. I'm with Fostering Hope, and I'm the executive director. Our goal is to help kids heal from trauma and go on to a healthy adulthood by becoming the extended family and providing that kind of support that they need to heal and that you can't really get from a system. So what we do is we recruit volunteers from area faith communities, and we pair them up with foster families as a team. And this team, usually it's 4 to 8 people or households, become aunts and uncles to that foster family. So they're there to support the parents as well as the kids and walk with them most often for many years. And then as the kids get older, we have volunteers that become like their aunts and uncles at that age, where they're more like adult friends. Yeah, the idea is that if you look at the science around trauma and what it takes to heal from it, it really comes down to love and relationships. And so what we tried to do with our model and our theory of change was, people have huge capacity to love on these kids and these parents, and people want to help, but it's connecting them to a system that can be pretty complex, and there's a lot of safety needs and things like that. So we tried to figure out how you could safely connect ordinary people to do this kind of thing. So it's in a way, it's kind of taking some of the work of the professionals and putting it into the everyday environment in the hands of non-professionals. The history of Fostering Hope is pretty interesting. One of our co-founders was a child abuse pediatrician, Angela Karen. She did that for many years, and in that work as a physician, she saw this need emerging. She's learning about the brain and what it takes for the kids to heal. She was becoming frustrated with the limitations of being in a system. The kids needed love, but that's hard for a judge or a caseworker or a physician to provide. And the foster parents needed support. They needed a place where they could, really vent or cry and just have someone to help them, because it's very difficult being a foster parent. So as she saw this need emerging, it became really a question of offering a different kind of healing. And she hung up her lab coat. Her family partnered with her. They did about 2 to 4 years of research, talking to foster families, talking to former foster or kids who had aged out of the foster care system, reading the literature, and we piloted it. We're 15 years old. We started with 2 teams of volunteers serving 2 foster families. And today we serve about, at any given time, 30 to 45. Early on, we saw some pretty immediate outcomes in our families. The foster parents' stress levels went down remarkably and quite quickly. The kids started doing better in school. And there was just a sense of calm, and then the foster parents became more attuned to the kids, and you could start to see that healing. But now, after 15 years, we also have some long-term outcomes, and it's really showing a lot of promise. A few of the key metrics, there's an important measure in child welfare called the disruption rate. And that's basically when you hear about kids bouncing around from home to home, that's called a disruption. That's where a foster family feels so overwhelmed and they're like, you got to find some place else for them. We can't handle this anymore. That disruption rate when we started was about 1/3, and now it's less than 1 in 10. So even when it gets really difficult and these foster families are really struggling to help these kids, with this extra support they're getting, they're generally able to stick it out. Another key metric is that the volunteers or the foster families are not quitting. One of our key reasons for being was to preserve good qualified foster families, because they're in short supply. So just about every foster family I've talked to said they would have quit if they didn't have a teen. For the kids, we've seen some really neat outcomes as they get older. Almost all of our kids have graduated, and typically that's about 35% in Colorado. Right now, about 87% of our young adults are working, and at any given time, 30 to 50% are taking some classes. We had a young adult who purchased her first home. We had another one who got her MBA in accounting. We have 11 young adults who are, living on their own successfully right now. With a little help from us, we do have a supportive housing program. And then kind of an unexpected outcome was our adoption rate. So we're not an adoption organization. We're there to support foster care. But what we found is that our foster families, when they get this support, they become attuned to these kids and fall in love with them. And then no matter how hard it is, they're not letting them go when they can't be reunified. And so our adoption rate is about 2.5 times that of families that don't have this support. And I should add that the families that we support are those that are taking the kids that you would consider to be the toughest kids. So large sibling groups, teenagers, kids who have a lot of medical needs, things like that. For example, we had one family that recently got 5 siblings all at once. So when they're adopting these kids, that's no small commitment. So we had one young lady, she came to us many years ago. She was an unaccompanied refugee minor. So just for clarification, the families and the young adults, the people that we get referred to us come from the different child placement agencies. We don't license the foster families directly. So one of those agencies, Lutheran Family Services, they have an unaccompanied refugee minor program. So these are teenagers and kids that come from places of war. Maybe their parents have been killed in conflict, and that's how they end up here. So anyway, we had this young lady. She came to us when she came into foster care. It was learning a whole new culture, a whole new language. And then as she became an adult, we were there for her to, kind of help her get established, find employment, get enrolled in school, mentor her on adult life. As time has gone on, she graduated last year with an MBA in accounting. She works for an accounting firm in Denver. She recently got married and very recently just had a baby. So that's really neat to see when these teens grow up and are living these, happy, healthy lives. We have another young lady who just closed on her first house. We have a young person who had a lot of trauma and had been involved with us, and a few years ago she had a baby, and it was very scary for her and for all of us because at that time it was, we were just very worried about her and the baby. And it was like an all hands on deck moment. We had tons of volunteers and even staff people that just surrounded her with support 24/7 when she needed a nap, when she needed to go places, and her well baby checks and all of those things. Along the way, you had moms and grandmas that were able to do some modeling, and here's what this means when the baby's doing this, and those things that just weren't really intuitive. And this immersion and just all of this love and support around her. Today she's working. She has her own apartment. Her kiddo is I think 3 now. They're doing great. They were at our picnic, and someone thought she was a foster mom just watching her interact with her son and how good she was being with him. So that's been neat to see, because the reason that's an important one is one of the things we try to do is sort of stop that intergenerational cycle. And in that instance, it kind of felt like maybe we had a hand in doing that. Partnering has been essential to what we do. I don't think anyone could do this alone. And it's been really sort of foundational to the model and what we've tried to develop. So what I mean by that is we recruit our volunteers from faith communities because they tend to share a similar mission for the vulnerable or children, and there's a good reservoir for volunteers. So when you have a faith community and you have this core group of volunteers, if someone moves away, then you can go back to them and say, hey, we need someone else, and you plug them right in. So we work with about 40 faith communities of all stripes and traditions. We partner with the child placement agencies. They license the foster families, and then they refer those families to us. They know our criteria, and we partner with the Department of Human Services. That's our biggest partnership because we exist because they trust us. And then we partner with quite a few businesses, employers in particular, who are willing to give our young adults a chance. Employing a young person with trauma has some unique challenges. You have to have a little more grace and patience and sort of understand, where you're trying to go with them. And so we have, probably a dozen employers we can call on that really get that. And then along the way, we've partnered with other nonprofits and organizations that have helped us collectively do this. We have a partnership with Widener Apartment Homes for our supportive housing. So we hold a master lease for some apartments, and then they entrust us to sublease to the young people, and they walk with us in that. We have partnered with Kids on Bikes when they've helped us get bikes for some of our people to get to work. So I may be leaving some out there, but it's definitely a collaborative effort. So with these teams of aunts and uncles that serve the foster families, that truly looks like what you might picture in a family. So they help with transportation and childcare. They'll show up at the kids' ball games to cheer them on from the sidelines, and they'll take them to practice so that they can actually participate in those extracurricular activities. I don't think a lot of people realize just like what the schedule of a foster parent is like. We had one foster mom that had 44 appointments in 1 week, and I'd like to say that's a extreme outlier, but it's not really. So these volunteers providing rides can help these kids get to things that the parents couldn't do on their own. They help the kids with homework. They take them out on play dates. They just do whatever needs to be done. The foster parent gets to call the shots. And then for the older kids, it's a lot of like help with life. That may be relationship advice. It may be helping them go to the grocery store and figure out a budget, and maybe point them to the PB&J instead of the shrimp. It may be helping them change the oil in their car. And then we provide housing, and as I mentioned, we work with employers. So it's that full gamut of services that are really just what someone would do if you just need help and they're like, how can I help? We try to say that we're an organization that doesn't function like an organization. When kids age out, they're really just kind of left to figure it out, and most of them aren't in a position to do that. Nationally, when a young person ages out of foster care, there's a 1 in 2 chance they'll be homeless within the first couple of years. For us, that's been about 16%. So we try to start working with them while they're still in the foster home, and then as they age out, they've got this network of support, and we help with we provide donated vehicles. We connect them to employers. We help them kind of navigate those things that nobody teaches you how to do, like getting your social security card or applying for this or that. We help them learn to trust people so that they can actually get the help they need, because those are things when you grow up in a healthy household you sort of take for granted, but when you grow up thinking that the world is dangerous and no one's to be trusted, even when you're feeling overwhelmed, you don't tell anyone. And so we've kind of helped to change that narrative for them. A key differentiator, I think, is that they don't like leave us until they sort of just don't need us anymore. They don't graduate, they don't get kicked out. Even if they go through a period where maybe they're mad at us or they don't want to deal with us, we're still there. We make that really clear to them, and they can always come back. And so there's nothing they can do that really separates them from us. And eventually, like the young lady I mentioned, when they're having their own family, they've got their job, and they don't need us, then they become an alum, but not through any official measure. We just stay with them till they're ready. If someone's interested in volunteering, it's probably best to just start with a phone call, and we can do a little bit of discovery of their interest and their time and things like that. But the way our volunteers typically work is we recruit teams, and generally we'll recruit those from faith communities, and those teams get trained, background checked, and then we have a coordinator on staff who facilitates that relationship with the team and the foster family. It's a big commitment. It's big but not too big, I should qualify that. We ask for 1 year of a commitment because these kids have had so many people in and out of their life, so consistency is really important. So we ask for 1 year, and that involves 1 act of service a month and 1 meeting a month with the family. So that act of service can be a ride, a meal, doing their laundry, child care. It can look like a lot of different things. But collectively, when we recruit 4 to 8 people and they're all doing at least one thing, that amounts to quite a bit of support. Now that's for what we call the core, the supporting the families. For the older kids, it's a little bit different. It's a little bit more kind of like a mentoring relationship. There's still quite a bit of training involved, but our recruitment process might be a little bit more oriented toward specific, skill sets and things like that. So the best thing to do would be to just call, and we can kind of explore someone's interest and see where they might be a good fit. But we always find a fit somewhere. Yes, every October. This year, I think it's October 6th. It's a Thursday. We do an annual fundraising luncheon. There's no ticketing or cost to attend. It's a 1-hour lunch, and we talk about our mission and have a couple of testimonials, and then if people are inspired to contribute, they can. So we do that. We usually participate in the Indie Give campaign, and then every summer we have an annual picnic that we consider kind of like we consider everyone part of one big family. So at the picnic, we invite all of our foster families, volunteers, community partners, donors. The more the merrier, and we just all get together and celebrate what everybody's been able to do. Our plan for the future right now is to ensure that no one has to sit on a waiting list for our services for very long. So right now, during COVID, we had to close our waiting list temporarily due to capacity. We've reopened the waiting list, but our ultimate goal is that we would be able to not even need a waiting list. So we're growing. Right now, we have about 30 teams or families we serve, and we think that to fully meet the need, that may be around 45 or 50. It kind of depends on what's happening out there, but we're working toward that point where of all the families that truly need what we do, we can meet that need. And it's the same thing for the older young adults, that we have an adequate network, that those in need of what we provide can get that, and that we can deliver it well, if you will. We have talked about the idea of taking what we've learned and giving it to other communities and replicating nationally, but we're in the very early stages of that. We know it works, and we know it's doing a lot of great stuff in this community, and we just don't want to be selfish with that. We want to share that with others, but that raises a lot of questions and things to figure out, and we're in the early stages of asking those questions. It's really hard to think about what some kids experience when you look at abuse and neglect and broken families, and you look at sometimes how that can go back for generations. It's very painful to get your head around. But what's really neat about fostering hope is being able to see that healing. When you think about what some of these kids have experienced, and it's truly something that is just almost unthinkable, and here they are laughing, smiling, hugging, these things that they just otherwise wouldn't be doing. That's been pretty neat. We had a holiday party, and just watching these these children run around and celebrate and be joyful was remarkable. I just heard the story Tuesday. One of our foster families got a 14-year-old, and on Christmas, she's like so confused, like, what's this thing? Why are we all gathering, opening gifts? She had never experienced that, and she's 14, So it's like, it's really sad to think about that, but then she's getting to now, We had another young person, I think he was 8, and they got all these gifts from our community, and he asked his foster mom, he's like, why are these people giving us stuff? And she said, they want you to know that you matter. And he didn't know how to take that, and then he just disappears to his room, and he comes back with some of his current toys, and he said he wanted to give those away so that somebody else could know that they mattered. So just seeing that transformation and that healing, and watching people from all these different parts of our community come together to make it happen is really neat. When you get 40 different faith communities and all these businesses and a child welfare system and donors from all walks of life in our community, and they all kind of focus their efforts in this singular way and create that kind of impact, that's just pretty special.